And I did find, as well, in blankets, or we did find whole long packets of cigarettes. And next time when I saw him, I said, well, what do we? He said, well, just throw it over the fence, which we did, and the Nazis saw it, but somehow they let it pass. Sometimes they were, and in Canada in general, they were much easier going. They had as well, before we went back into the camp, we had to have a shower in Canada, because we were kept much cleaner, and it was very dusty there, from opening blankets and all that stuff. And it was hot, so we all had to have showers there before we went back into camp. And it was sort of open, but there were planks around it. And the Germans were kind of coming in and tickling us and playing games with us, and, as if we were humans. I must say, they were mostly younger people, and the better-looking people were working in Canada.
What did your mother teach you about being a girl or being
Nothing.
a woman?
I don't even remember my mother that good.
What did your mother do?
My mother, she was a gypsy. If I tell you what she used to do, I don't really want to say that on the thing. She used to steal. That's what she used to do. She used to steal. For one thing, when my brother got beat up, she went over there and beat that guy up. After that, she went to somebody's, I don't know. See, I don't know that much about it, because it was all hush-hush like that. She went to somebody's, or before, I really don't know. She went to somebody's, got into a king's palace, and she stole a crown. And she took that thing what is sitting on top here, and took a hammer and knocked it in her hands apart, and then she's going to go sell it. And they caught her with that stone, because stones like that, they registered. You don't steal nothing. That's what I think. I don't know. I'm saying it now, They got to be registered.
Where did she do this?
I don't know where, but that's what she did. I heard a lot about it, because my father, he said he was sitting in the bed, and when the police came, he cut the inlet from the bed, where all the feathers is in. He opened it up and just pushed it like this, so all the feathers flew in the police's face, and they took off, and she went out the back, and she was gone. And that's when we went to Poland. I remember I was not but that big. So they ran over me. They ran out of the trailer. See.
So what country were you in at the time?
And we was in Berlin, Tempelhof. No, not Tempelhof. Berlin, Cottbus Adam.
I was a small child, 3.5 years old, when my family was chased out of our home in Romania, and we were herded into a concentration camp. My father soon died of typhus. And my mother and I were left in a camp that was not a death camp. There were many other kinds of camps, essentially where people were left to starve. But with always the fear of being sent to one of the death camps. That was always in the horizon. I was in the camp for about 2 years, and at that point they were supposed to essentially liquidate it, as they were going to do with all the camps, and just annihilate everyone. There was a deal made by which orphan children were allowed to be sent out of the camp if they had someone to sign for them. My mother sent me as an orphan, and I knew I was not exactly an orphan, but this was to save my life.
Nothing short of extraordinary.
20 years, you never even spoke of it.
I didn't know how. Dr. Mengele appeared in our barracks,
Searching for talented inmates to entertain him.
and my friends volunteered me.
But my limbs are heavy as in a nightmare when there's danger and you can't run away. "Dance!" he commands again. I can hear his voice over the music. He discusses with the other officer which ones of the 100 girls present will be killed next. If I miss a step, it could be me. I close my eyes. I hear my mother's words come back to me. Just remember, no one can take away from you what you've put in your own mind. And now I can hear Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet. The barracks floor become a stage at the Budapest Opera House. I dance for my fans in the audience. I dance within the glow of hot lights. I dance for my lover, Romeo, as he lifts me high above the stage. I dance for love. I dance for life. He must be impressed by my performance because he tosses me a loaf of bread. I share the bread with Magda and our bunkmates.
What kind of other atrocities did you see personally?
One day, they brought two men from a different camp, and they told us that they think they are sick of typhus. They put them in bags, and we had to stay the whole night. It was in the evening.
Were the men alive?
The men were alive.
Did you see them, or did you see them in the bag?
No. But in the bags you could see, they were alive. And the Lagerführer was a butcher, a real butcher. So he took his truck and went over two people.
He ran them over?
Ran them over.
How many times?
I don't remember.
They made everyone watch?
Yes, we have to stay the whole camp and to watch.
And how long did that take?
It took half a night. And then...
You kept running them over half a night?
No, once, but we had to stay. Maybe the other morning we saw blood over there where we used to go to wash ourselves. So they probably hanged them.
Did you find out who the two men were?
Yeah, one was a son from our rabbi, from Benjamin, Grayev Ruf's son.
So they killed him?
They killed both men.
And who was the second
I
man?
don't know. This I don't know.
What do you remember of the treatment of the Germans towards the people in Terezin?
Two things come to my mind when you ask me that, because I didn't have much to do with them. But once I was in the stables, and I was in Carl's room. I don't know whether I was cooking something or what. And all of a sudden, there was a hullabaloo going on. It was Sunday afternoon, and there was some big ado in the stable boys' room, and everybody was running around. And Carl came into the room and said to me, "Don't go out there," and disappeared. Of course I went. And I went into the stable boys' room, and everybody was around the window, and I looked out, and I saw what Carl didn't want me to see. There was a tractor that was driven by an SS man, a low-rank one, SS man, whom we called Polak, because I think he was Polish. And around the front wheel, wound around the front wheel, was the body of a young man dressed in like Sunday clothes. He had a trench coat on, and he was kind of wound around the wheel. His head was hanging down, and blood was dripping out. And for one moment I saw his open eyes, and I didn't know whether he was still alive or not. And it looked like nobody knew exactly what to do, and that Polak SS-man was standing there in front and just kind of walking around like, and then disappeared, I don't know why, to get something else. And there underneath the corpse or the young man was a bouquet of flowers, wild flowers, which he had picked somewhere. He was obviously, as the boys said later, he was on his way to visit his girlfriend. and this guy Polak ran him down on purpose, because this guy was very dangerous. Everybody was afraid of him and worried about him. He would get drunk, and he was very mean.
I was in Auschwitz hospital. Knoller Alfred. All these with this sign here means that they did not leave the hospital, but they died, or maybe they were 2 weeks to work, they were gassed in Birkenau.
Those that survived the Holocaust often needed a bit of luck.
Do you remember being in the hospital?
Oh yes, and I remember it very well, because you know that I had a friend who was a doctor actually, and he gave me extra food, and he sometimes said, "Come on, Freddy, go into hospital, because for a few days, so that you can relax a little bit." And he got me into the hospital.
This moment is the most important moment of my life. I'm a survivor of the Holocaust. I ended up in Auschwitz at 14. The current political climate is really difficult to bear, because it reminds me of what happened to us. My Jewish values taught me to accept people, no matter what they are. This election makes me feel hopeful that we're going to really overcome this. When I voted, I have hope that we're going to bring this country together. I voted this time for Biden. Vote. It's important.
Я счастливый, что я могу вас видеть, с вами разговаривать. Это для меня большое дело.
Спасибо огромное.
2 ночи не сплю, потому что я жду вас.
Я обещал.
Я счастливый, что я могу с вами говорить и вас видеть. Хороший парень.
This is one of the last opportunities that we'll have to witness something like this. I feel like we're kind of touching a piece of history. This reunion between Eliyahu and his nephew, who came immediately to meet him from Russia when the revelation was made, happened thanks to the information that they found, that Eliyahu's grandson found on Yad Vashem's central database of Shoah victims' names.
Сейчас вы знаете, что есть большая фамилия здесь, в Израиле.
Да.
Вы не будете самотны.
Нормально. Все нормально. Все нормально. Нормально. Нормально.
Very, very hard labor. During these 7 weeks, we found out about decimation. Decimation meant that if you did something that was against the rules, you would be lined up in the morning, and every 10th person would be shot. And at one point, we were being punished by decimation. We were told in the evening that in the morning we'll be decimated. And it was the most horrible night of my life, because I was petrified that my mother would be shot instead of me, because the decimation meant that they would start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the 10th one would be shot. And then again, 1, 2, 3. And I was so worried that I would be 9th and my mother would be 10th, and I wouldn't bear it that she should be shot in front of me. And my mother was petrified that I will be shot, and she would make it. So it was the awful, awful night, and everybody cried all night long. And then, this would be a long story, and I cannot take up the time, but a miracle happened, because during that night there was an insurrection in a nearby factory. Polish workers struck against the Germans, and they were brought in and interrogated, and all night long they were interrogated, and the Germans were too busy with them, and they forgot to decimate us. And the morning came, and we stood on Zillapel, and we were not decimated. We went back to work. It's a long story, but all I can tell you is that we lived through decimation, and if I would have been probably a little older, my hair would have turned gray that night, because many others, their hair turned gray during the night. So we experienced
Now, going into 45, at that point, your biggest physical danger was probably the air raids.
Yeah, well, we took them in stride. The more, the better. Every house I saw burning, as long as it wasn't our house, I was happy. People were moaning and groaning, they're losing everything, and everything's burning. I said, good. They were just as happy as we were. It had to come to an end. The sad part was that my grandfather lost his life in one of the air raids in 45. He burned alive, you know, and that was very hard for us to take. Yeah.
Was he in his barber shop?
He was in his cellar, but then they had to leave the cellar. He went back into the barber shop to save his stamp collection, and that was the end. And my grandma got out, and she survived that air raid. The more, the better. Every house I saw burning, as long as it wasn't our house, I was happy. People were moaning and groaning, they're losing everything, and everything's burning. I said, good. The sad part was that my grandfather lost his life in one of the air raids in 45. The more, the better. People were moaning and groaning, they're losing everything, and everything's burning. I said, good. He burned alive, you know, and that was very hard for us to take. People were moaning and groaning, they're losing everything, and everything's burning. I said, good. He burned alive, you know, and that was very hard for us to take.
We lived in a house, a big house. I'll show you at the moment. And there was two entrances. One was for us, our apartment, and the other was number 14. I can't remember. The other was number 13 or 15, and that's where Hitler lived.
And you were aware of him and who he was at that
Well,
time?
after time, I mean, we heard merely from the cook, and there's other people that was there, and then we knew. I saw him once or twice coming home, and his car would draw up, and then two SS men would jump out and stand on each side of his way, and he rushed out to the house, terrified, obviously, that somebody would try to kill him. And I saw this once or twice. And once I went to the opera. We were given sometimes tickets for the opera through the school, and I got a ticket. It was in the royal box of the smaller opera, so I was very pleased. I got to the royal box in the evening. There were SS men saying, you can't come here, go 2 boxes further down. And before the curtain went up, I looked at the royal box, there was Hitler sitting there.
What would you have said to him now, knowing what happened in the years after? Would you have done anything differently and spoken to him?
I wouldn't want to talk to him.
You wouldn't want to talk to him?
No.
Okay.
Because my feelings would be too strong, and I couldn't. Herman Rosenblatt does have a real story of survival in the Nazi concentration camps, a story that is genuinely extraordinary. But as he explained to us in this exclusive interview, he felt he needed to make things up to get people to pay attention.
The greatest love story we've ever told on this show.
Herman Rosenblatt received international attention for his story about being a hungry little boy in a Nazi concentration camp who was thrown apples every day by a little girl on the other side of the fence. Years later, according to the story, Rosenblatt met that same girl on a blind date in New York City, and he proposed on the spot.
I used to come by every day, bring the apple, have in my jacket and a piece of bread, and he used to say, I'll see you tomorrow.
The story landed Herman and Roma Rosenblatt on Oprah twice and in newspapers all over the world. They also got a book and movie deal. But the story wasn't true.
Why did you do it? Why did you tell such a big lie to so many people for so long?
It wasn't a lie. It was my imagination. And in my imagination, in my mind, I believed it. Even now I believe it, that she was there and she threw the apple to me.
How can you say it wasn't a lie? It wasn't true, and you know it's not true.
Yes, it's not true. But in my imagination, it was true.
Rosenblatt says he made the story up to give people hope and to promote understanding about the Holocaust. But members of his own family say his real motivation was money.
So you were not motivated in any way by money?
No.
This is from your son. He said that he knew you were lying for years and he couldn't get you to stop. And here's his quote. It was always hurtful. My father is a man who I don't know. How do you respond to that?
I don't know. I can't respond to it. I don't know why he said it. I don't know. Maybe I'll ask him.
Herman and Roma Rosenblatt told their false story publicly for more than a decade, but it all fell apart about 6 weeks ago after Holocaust scholars proved that it was physically impossible for prisoners to approach the fence at the concentration camp where Herman was kept, and that Roma's family was actually more than 200 miles away at the time.
Why did your wife agree to go along with this? Did she ever express any reservations?
Because she loves me.
Why is she not here today?
Because I don't want her to be here today. It's too much going on.
Was it difficult for your wife to have to go out very publicly and tell a story that she knew wasn't true?
It was. It was. But she loves me so much that if she thinks that's good for me, she'll go along.
Rosenblatt is remarkably unrepentant about his years of lying.
I pronounce my love for you forever.
When you look at that, does it make you uncomfortable at all?
No.
You think that was the right thing to do?
Yeah.
And while you were up on the stage there in front of all those people, in the back of your mind, were you not thinking,
no,
I'm not telling the truth here?
No.
Let me ask you just quickly about
I didn't hear you say you agreed to this. Do we agree to that?
Our interview was frequently interrupted by this man, Harris Solomon, who says he is planning to produce a fictionalized movie account of Rosenblatt's story, despite complaints from critics.
If you look on Holocaust Denier websites right now, they're using it as we speak as an example of why you shouldn't believe Holocaust survivors.
Right. And those Holocaust Denier websites would perpetuate some other story if it wasn't Herman Rosenblatt.
Rosenblatt says he wants people to know that he did what he did with good intentions.
So if you had to do it over again, would you tell the same story?
Yeah.
You would?
Yes.
Rosenblatt does say that he's sorry, but he's only sorry, he says, that people took the story, quote, the wrong way. His book deal for a nonfiction memoir fell through a couple of weeks ago because of this controversy, but a fictionalized book may come out this summer, and the movie version is supposed to start shooting this summer as well in Eastern Europe, Diane, and they say they're going to carry on despite the criticism.
I simply don't know what to say. I mean, it's his imagination, but he knows it's not true.
He says he made up a fantasy world, and he was living in that fantasy world.
And his son says, tried to stop him.
Yes.
Good heavens. Okay, thank you, Dan.
Pleasure.
So we start hiding there. I've been hiding my father, my little brother, and a lot of Jews. But one day my father said to me, you know, Razel, he called me Rose, whatever. He said, you better go out from here because I have a feeling you will survive. but you go and run from here because you never know what happened to us here. I didn't want to go. I've been crying. I said, no. He said, you must go. We will survive maybe all, but you go. Where should I go? He said, do you remember you went to school? You had a very good friend in school. I said, I had another one, but that Polish friend. I said, Urszula? He said, yes. And it took me a few days till I went. I've been very upset to leave them. And alone, where should I go? Money I didn't have. I've been already there. They didn't have the clothes, nothing. But anyway, I made up my mind, maybe he's right. And I start walking. I walked on the streets and I walked on the barns, any place just to reach Lublin. By carriage, it took me a few days till I reached, went to Lublin. And one day, I remember like today, the Gestapo was already made Juden free. They start killing Jews in a little, like a farm. And I didn't know, I just passed by and I see Gestapo's, I heard already shots. And it was not far from me when I wanted to pass, so I dropped. It was a little tree, and I dropped on the tree, and I was so tired I fell asleep. And I was only thinking, where they're going to hit me, on my head, on my legs. I didn't know. I thought they would kill me too. When I fell asleep, my mother, I was dreaming about my mother. This is just a story, just a story. And she said to me, run. When you wake up, yes, on foot, which was made believe I didn't have foot, and you run away from here. I woke up, it was already quiet. They killed a lot of Jews, of course, and everybody, they went away, and they left me, they didn't know me, they didn't see me. Was just like I don't know, like another dream. Then I woke up and I started again running, and then finally I went to that Lublin, and I hit my friend's house.
We slept in their big tents. They opened up tents and let us sleep on the floor in the tents. And some of them, from those people, those Hungarian Jews, they dug holes in the ground, like like soldiers do in the war.
Like foxholes.
Foxholes, right. And then they slept in there. And then the SS come and said, you get out of there, or we get you out. So I guess they didn't want to listen. And it didn't take long. A couple of German not jets, but fighter came with machine guns and sprayed with machine guns and killed them, just as they were. And then a day later or so, people come running around, you want to have a piece of meat? We have a piece of meat. Look at it. You want to buy that? You know what that was? That was from the bodies. They cut off. And gave them, trying to sell them. You should eat it. I just looked at it. I said, where the hell can it be? It's impossible. Well, we stood there not too long, slept in the tents.
This is the end of tape 4 interview with Fred Wall.
When they unloaded us from that train, they had these big airplane hangars, and they knew or had it figured out that once they give you a poison shot, that you would have time enough to get to the end of the hangar where they had straw on the floor to lay down, and that was your end. Luckily, again, a homosexual who lived there pulled me out for whatever reason, and I can say he saved my life.
How did he pull you out?
How what?
How did he pull you out? How did he pick you up?
Well, I don't know, and I can't tell you. I really just don't know. I don't know again how, but a homosexual pulled me out of the line. He had a room and that hangar, and took me to his room to hide me, which he did. He has never attempted anything of any sexual nature. I guess that because I was young, I really can't tell. And then from there, they took us to our barracks eventually after a day or two.
You know, after like few weeks, they take you to the showers. To the showers, they give you a small bar of soap when you enter, and you go to the showers. In the ceiling, you know, they were, you know, sometimes it was water coming through, sometimes it was gas. So now we were entering this knowing, because sometimes we could die, sometimes we could come back alive. And before entering, no towels or anything, they will give you a bar of soap. In this bar of soap, there were 3 initials in German that I forgot how to pronounce in German, but it means pure Jewish fat into the soap. It meant that they were making the soap out of the corpse of the living. They make those soaps. They were making out of the corpse of the living many things. They will make, you know, that parchment to make that to the lampshades. They will make, you know, purses for them. For the skin of the dead people, they will make beautiful skins, you know, like purses for the Germans. They will make anything. And then the flesh, you know, they were sometimes, you know, when they burn, if they were not burned, they will use it for to make sausages and to make, you know, polony that they were giving us at night to eat.